how to file an inland refugee claim in Canada. Now, whether you're fleeing political persecution, gender-based violence, or targeted threats because of who you are, you must understand that how you initiate your claim in Canada affects everything that follows. Let's take a deep dive into the 3 main channels for filing an inland claim and the procedural nuances of each. Okay, claiming asylum at the airport, popularly known as the port of entry claim. Imagine this: you land at the Pearson International Airport, and at the CBSA booth, the officer asks, "What's the purpose of your visit?" You respond, "I'm here to seek asylum." From that moment, the legal machinery starts turning. Here's what happens next. You're immediately referred to a CBSA officer who is going to conduct a preliminary eligibility interview, so to speak. You may be given an information package. You're going to be asked questions, of course, about the circumstances surrounding your trip to Canada and how you obtained your visa. They're going to ask you some questions. Not to scare you, it's not going to be I can't guarantee that it's not going to be a lot of questions, but expect the questions. It's an interview, for crying out loud, right? And then you're potentially going to be given a basis of claim form or instructions on how to complete it online. You're going to be given a conditional departure order, which becomes relevant if your claim is denied later on, meaning that the removal order or deportation order is not valid until something happens to your claim. For instance, your claim gets initially refused or anything like that, then that departure order or removal order or deportation order, whatever it is that it's termed at that time, would become enforceable. Now, you will not be granted immediate protection. Okay, you must know this. You have to prove your eligibility and meet statutory requirements. However, depending on your circumstances, you could be asked to, go to wherever you're planning to stay, or you could be referred to a shelter, or if there are any sort of complications at the airport regarding your identity or criminal admissibility, medical inadmissibility, or any of those types of complications, you could be detained in an immigration detention center from the airport. One very important aspect of this process is you have 15 days. I can't stress this enough. You have 15 days to submit your BOC form. If you miss this deadline, your claim could be declared abandoned, even if you're still in Canada. Risks of getting incarcerated in an immigration detention facility are higher when your circumstances start getting complicated with identity issues. For example, coming in with a different name, different passport, different date of birth, or misaligned or conflicting identity information. So those types of complications could expose you to the risk of getting incarcerated, meaning that getting detained in an immigration detention facility. Now, here is a tip for you. If you are considering making a claim at the airport, always ask for written confirmation of timelines before you leave the airport. I strongly recommend you call a lawyer immediately. Speak to someone who could help you get in touch with a lawyer immediately you leave the airport. Now, let's talk about submitting a claim online. Claiming online via the IRCC portal is the most common route these days, and equally the most misunderstood. This is the standard pathway for most refugee claimants who are already inside Canada. And here's how it works. I'm going to break it down into steps. Step 1 would be to create a refugee claimant profile. So you go to IRCC, the IRCC portal, you create a secure account if you do not have one already. If you have one already, you could just create your claim from within your IRCC account. Now, once you create your account, you complete the eligibility questionnaire, you upload your basic identity documents, meaning your passport, ID, birth certificate, visa if any, and your BOC form plus your narrative. So there's a way to organize all of these documents. Find legal representation to assist you with organizing these documents before submitting. It's crucial. Once you've gathered all of your documents, step 2 would be to submit the claim, right? And these documents in question include your basic biodata, reasons for claiming protection, and supporting documentation. Once you submit your claim online, you're going to receive a submission confirmation, which includes the summary of your application. You're equally going to receive an acknowledgement of your claim letter, instructions to complete biometrics and medical exams as applicable. You're going to equally receive a letter requesting additional documentation if applicable. The third step would be to wait for your eligibility appointment. You'll be called to appear before an IRCC officer, and your identity, documents, and background will be assessed. If eligible, you'll receive your confirmation of eligibility, your refugee protection identity document, and your work permit as applicable, and a conditional removal order, which is only enforceable if your claim gets refused down the line. Following this interview, if you are eligible, your claim will be referred to the Immigration and Refugee Board, and you will receive a confirmation of referral to the Refugee Protection Division of the Immigration and Refugee Board in your online portal. Mind you, many claimants upload incomplete or inconsistent information. You need to be mindful of all the information you submit, because once submitted, your story is on record. Changing it later can affect your credibility. Next, let's talk about submitting your claim at an IRCC office. Claiming at an IRCC office is not available to everyone as of recent times. You must book an appointment through the IRCC Client Support Center. You must provide reason why you cannot file online, which could include different abilities, challenges, language barriers, computer illiteracy, or imminent removal, as the case may be. At the IRCC office, you'll meet with an officer in person. They'll review your documents, conduct the eligibility assessment, and if eligible, you'll receive your referral documents and instructions to complete the BOC form. That is, if it's not done at that appointment. In recent times, IRCC in-person claims are relatively rare and usually done in consultation with legal counsel or a caseworker, as the case may be. Now, I can't stress this enough. Always consult a lawyer before walking into an IRCC office. Whatever it is that's taking you to an IRCC office, do not go there without consulting a lawyer. Now, we've discussed the different ways you can submit your claim, and here are a few takeaways. Regardless of how you file your claim, you must keep all communication received from IRCC or CBSA. You must write down your deadlines, especially the 15-day BOC deadline. You must attend all your appointments, or you reschedule them with notice. You must keep your lawyer informed and updated of any information from your address, phone number, everything really with regards to your circumstances. Ensure that you keep your lawyer, IRCC, and IRB informed as applicable. Now that your claim is submitted, you might think the hard part is over, right? But it's only the beginning. Now we're going to talk about why it's absolutely essential to have a legal representative and how one wrong move can derail your entire process. This is why you need a legal representative in your refugee claim. A refugee claim is not a DIY project. That is why legal help is critical. When it comes to refugee claims, the law is complex. The procedures are strict, and the stakes, nothing short of life or death immigration law speaking, right? Let me be clear. You're not required to have a lawyer to make a refugee claim in Canada, but attempting to navigate this process without proper legal guidance is like walking through a minefield blindfolded. It is a risk that's not worth taking, if you ask me. I mean, you have the discretion or the liberty to make your choice and submit your claim by yourself, but it's not recommended, it's not advised. Ensure that you have legal representation, or at least someone who could view your application from a legal lens. Refugee law is not ordinary common sense. It is legal strategy. Most claimants think it's enough to say, hey, I'm abused, or I'm scared to return to my home country. But the Immigration and Refugee Act doesn't operate on sympathy. It operates on legal definitions, evidentiary thresholds, and credibility assessments. You need to ensure that your story is presented in a credible manner, because mere confusion or trauma could derail your entire process, not because you're not telling the truth, just because of lack of strategy. A qualified immigration lawyer helps you present your story within the correct legal grounds, which include race, political opinion, social group, and as applicable with regards to any of the grounds. The lawyer or a qualified immigration lawyer helps you avoid pitfalls like irrelevant details or emotional narratives that lack legal essence or legal value. A lawyer would identify risks of exclusion or inadmissibility before you even submit your claim. The second point that's crucial that needs to be taken into consideration whether or not to retain a lawyer on your refugee claim is your BOC form, which can make or break your claim. The BOC form is the foundation of your entire case. What you say or fail to say, whatever you enter or fail to enter in your BOC form, can follow you through your hearing, every appeal, every judicial review, all the way to a final decision on your claim. So it's critical to ensure that a lawyer helps you or guides you through filling out your BOC form. A lawyer will help you fill out the information clearly, consistently, and credibly, and ensure all relevant facts are included, not just what you remember under stress, right? A lawyer would guide you, ask you the right questions to ensure that the right information is entered in your BOC form. Also, the lawyer would help cross-reference your narrative with country conditions and legal arguments to ensure that you're putting a best foot forward. One thing that I must mention is I've seen a lot of claimants who lose at their hearings, at their initial hearings, because of contradictions or inconsistencies between their BOC and later testimony. So it's important and crucial for you to avoid this trap. Also, your lawyer thinks 10 steps ahead of the process, right? Just because immigration lawyers are trained to track your timelines and ensure no step is missed, prepare and file evidence in accordance with Immigration and Refugee Board rules, which is usually 10 days before the date scheduled for your hearing. And they're trained to anticipate questions from the IRB member and prepare you accordingly. And that includes advocating for procedural accommodations, for example, trauma-informed hearings, language support, remote testimony, as the case may be. We as immigration lawyers don't just fill out forms. We review your narrative and advise on its potential to undergo legal scrutiny. If you're asking yourself whether or not you can afford the services of a lawyer, if you're unsure, listen to this. Legal aid and pro bono service do exist in Canada. In most provinces, including Ontario, legal aid may cover the cost of legal representation for eligible refugee claimants. You may also find pro bono lawyers, refugee law clinics, community-based support centers who could refer you to pro bono lawyers. And all of these resources are available. You just need to do some research or speak with the right people, and you are going to have access to these services or resources. Well, in all that you do, don't make the mistake of thinking that, I'll just do it myself and then I'm going to get help later on. In refugee law, later on may be too late. Some of the most heartbreaking consultations I've had were with people who tried to figure it out themselves, only to return months or a few years later after their claims were refused or declared abandoned. That you do not want to find yourself in such circumstances. So hear me now. If you're considering or are in the middle of a refugee claim, retain legal counsel as early as possible. It can mean the difference between protection and removal. This is crucial. If you're already in a similar situation where you represented yourself and would like to know the way forward, book a consultation with me and we'll go over the details of your claim, and I'll provide you with legal advice tailored to your situation. Or if you just need a legal opinion, I can certainly do that as well.